Hey everybody, welcome to Pep Talks, and we are live on YouTube. It is me, Eddie Pepitone, with our co-host and partner in crime, Steve Lally. Hey, say hello to YouTube.
Hey everybody. Hey, that's me on the screen. Holy cow.
Man, hello YouTube and SoundCloud. That's our main areas of being disseminated. So, Steve, we have a lot going. Me and Steve both have some big gigs coming up, and we thought we'd tell you them at the top. You're going to be, go ahead,
I'm headlining Royce Hall at UCLA on Friday for Bruin Fest, their biggest comedy show of the year. Yeah, 8 p.m. If you're a student, faculty, alumni, I think you're able to come to that show. But I don't think it's for the public. I don't think the public can buy tickets to that show. I think it's just for UCLA people or people who have a connection with UCLA.
Wow.
It's my first university that's ever booked me to do stand-up comedy.
And you go right to like a huge festival?
Yeah.
And you're in Royce Hall, which is a big auditorium.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I performed in Royce Hall or if I was taken advantage of in Royce Hall. I can't remember.
You really need to...
Well, I was in a bathroom. It doesn't matter now.
It was not Royce Hall. Was the bathroom at Royce Hall?
Oh, no, it was in the Port Authority in New York. I'm getting Royce Hall and the Port Authority in New York mixed up.
Well, good memory.
That's because of allergies, by the way. And by the way, bad allergy season this year. Oof. I've had some post-nasal drip.
Is that it? Because it's like an elephant sits on my head when I get it.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes and elephants are being eliminated. God damn it, man. All the animals that are being poached, for fucking herbal medicines, superstitious herbal.
What about all the fucking environmentalists who get caught like in these profiting and sex rings and shit?
Wait a minute.
Read about that stuff?
Wait a minute. Look, first of all, environmentalists have a right to have sex in a circle, if that's what you mean by ring.
No, man.
Oh, what are you talking about?
I mean like procuring sex slaves and like getting children to have...
Environmentalists?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I wish I had the fucking news in front of me.
I wish you knew
because I don't have
what you wanted to talk about.
But it's crazy. Like, how could you be, trying to care for the environment and then traffic children into a sex ring?
I don't know what you're talking about. I know all about sex rings because they're fucking horrible, and the exploitation of children. It goes into two of my big areas. Like, first of all, the overpopulation in the world is so insane. It's so insane. Overpopulation. I mean, nature's being destroyed, and children. All these kids who were born into utter poverty. They're not taken care of, a lot of them, and they're sold into sexual slavery because their families don't have money, and it's horrible, and that's why we need to fucking get a more equitable system in place globally. And what's interesting, by the way, so Steve is going to be at Royce Hall, and he's nervous about it, and I don't blame him. And then he brings up the fact that environmentalists are fucking in sex. If you bring something like that up, you have to be able to back it up.
I know. Because
it's ridiculous.
Well, next week I'll bring on some.
Not next week. When you bring it up now, what did you even mean?
There's
what?
It's in the news. It's happened, and I just don't have the links. I don't
to
have
what? What is
support that these crazy fucking, industrialists who have, hundreds of billions of dollars.
You said environmentalists.
No, yeah, but they're like heirs of fortunes, and then they do this humanity work, but underneath it, there's these sex rings going on. It's not conspiratorial. Really, are you looking it up?
No, because you're all over the place. You were saying environmentalists. Now you're saying they're industrialists, which is very different.
They're the heirs of industrial wealth, and they've gone into this philanthropy. And I don't have the people. I'm sorry, everybody. I brought something up and I have no specific thing, but it did happen.
I
I'm sorry. It did happen, though. I have to
what
find it.
happened?
Someone was busted pushing some sex ring, and they were, it was under the guise of environmental, some environmental.
All right. I'm sorry, everybody.
I'm sorry. I should have
no.
had the facts to back that up with.
Well, it's just that you were so specific saying that it was environmental.
I'm just fumbling this. I'm sorry. I messed up.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I will look this up.
Yeah. I mean, it is obvious. And again, Steve is nervous about Royce Hall coming up. But,
I really am, man.
Look, it's, this sexual slavery around the world and especially of children. By the way, this is wild that we went into this right away. But, I mean, yeah, fucking rich, perverted people pay big money for that.
Crazy shit, man.
There was an island. Do you know about an island? It was a wealthy, a billionaire who would take, and big names have been on this, and
Not Epstein. Is it the Epstein guy?
It might be. But Clinton, Bill Clinton, supposedly among many prominent politicians and quote unquote industrialists, were involved in that kind of thing. On a private island of some billionaire, the sexploitation of kids.
Yeah, the one that I do know about is the woman who was on Smallville. I forget her name. Allison Mack, the actress. She was busted procuring sex girls to be in sexual slavery to some guy, some cult leader. But the person who was financing that was like a Carnegie or a Rothschild or some crazy shit. So that is, to me, diabolical. That this excessive wealth, kind of like Leopold and Loeb, like this excessive wealth leads to this cruelty, I guess is what I'm just...
Well, I mean, we've talked about it before, everyone's turned into a commodity in capitalism, and especially in the later stages of capitalism and in the death throes of capitalism, which is what we have now. And everyone's turned into a commodity. People are dehumanized, and that goes for children, and everybody is just to be exploited, is to be used up and then cast aside, including nature. And that's what goes on when it's profit before human beings. And so that's a natural extension, that kind of thing.
Well, we're seeing the fabric of the society come apart. And so the people who are really wealthy, who have this excess, they get less connected to the problems that, you and I might face with money or just making the rent or,
You think?
Yeah. But it's more pronounced than it was a couple decades ago.
I mean, Hillary Clinton and WikiLeaks. By the way, I don't know if we ever talked about Julian Assange being, thrown out of the Ecuadorian embassy.
We didn't.
And that's a fucked up thing. And Assange, a lot of quote unquote Democrats get mad because they think the WikiLeaks about Clinton that were released before the election helped tilt the election in favor of the Trumpster, the orange imbecile. But, Clinton all he did was expose a lot of truths. One, about the U.S. war machine. That's why they want him in prison, not hacking. Chelsea Manning did the hacking, formerly Bradley Manning. But Assange released footage of the United States blowing up journalists and kids, and that's why they want Assange in jail. And the thing with Clinton was that she, and it's to your point about the wealthy being out of touch, she, in one of the WikiLeaks documents, she was saying, me and Bill just don't relate to this. Basically, the problems of working people. She said this, and she was doing some insane, she was doing fundraisers. She was getting speaking fees at Goldman Sachs.
Oh yeah, speaking of the banks,
like $250,000 for a fucking speech.
right? And when Bernie,
by the way, if I could get $250,000 for my stand-up, and I'm sure what I have to say is a lot more entertaining than Hillary Clinton and a lot more truthful, but they're buying access, So Goldman Sachs, and this is how everything, and this is to your point again about, not to your point, but your observation about, kids being used by the rich. It's like everything is bought and paid for.
And there's no penalty. That's the other thing. There doesn't seem to be that much of a penalty. If there was, people wouldn't do those things. If people were being penalized
properly, the rich
properly,
write the laws.
Well, that's why they go hear Hillary Clinton speak, because they know she's going to write the laws for them.
That's right.
So it's not just
The
hearing
rich,
her.
the rich pay to have the laws written for them, maybe more accurate.
You could go give a speech to Goldman Sachs. It wouldn't be the same speech, but you could go deliver.
I would
Hillary
like to give
Clinton's
a speech at Goldman Sachs, and it would be, "You all are scum." Like I would get up in front of the Goldman Sachs. You all,
Board of directors.
You all are scum who could never do anything with your lives but finance. You all are just money-centric lunatics and narcissists. I wonder if everybody in finance is a piece of shit. Not everybody, I guess. Not everybody, but that money machine, that Goldman, and what's so unbelievable too is that it here we are in Hollywood and quote unquote trying to be artists or whatever. And what's hilarious too is all these Hollywood movies that come out from Adam Sandler. My gate is changed. Fuck. I'm going on and on about the rich, and meanwhile, I'm flying to Austin tomorrow, and I just got a gate change.
See,
You ever get a gate change?
This is why we can't have revolution in this culture, because this throws you off your revolution game.
Well,
Just
my gate changed.
Your gate
First
changed.
of all, I was so ready. My gate yesterday was B4, and now it's B2, and I was so
it
ready.
was before.
It was B4, and now it's B2. Very bad Abbott and Costello routine. But anyway, what we're kind of mixing right now is Steve's gig at Royce Hall with, the sexual slavery and human trafficking of human beings who are just completely. They're not you. I mean, people don't even realize how there is no humanity now. Like they don't even realize it. Like part of it is machines and computers. The other part of it is just, we're pitted against each other, and we're pitted against each other globally. And I'm a competitive person. I'm a competitive person. If I see, a comedian in Taiwan, I want to be funnier than him or her,
Good.
See, that's what you want in a co-host. You want them just to keep it going.
I don't know what the fuck to say to that.
Yeah, no, you want them just to keep it going. But
Royce Hall is very scary. Royce Hall is...
Well, for you it is.
Yeah.
For me, but here's what would be scary to me, and I don't want to psych you out about the gig, but college kids,
That's
right?
That's the whole reason I can't have
Are they going to be drunk assholes, or are they going to be a good audience?
No, they're going to be a good audience, but...
Oh, good.
Are they going to understand anything I'm talking about?
Why,
I should have been
why
touring colleges.
Now, that's supposed to be a good college, UCLA, right?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they understand what you're talking about? What are you going to be talking about? Are you going to open with the sexual slavery stuff?
I think so. Well, first of all, I'm going to say I'm going to do a lot of Pepitone references. I'm the Pep Talks guy, because that's why I got the gig, They said they called me and said, "You're the guy from Pepitone."
I wouldn't
right?
bring me up.
I'm kidding, dude.
Oh, okay, good.
I can't believe you.
No, I thought you were being
No,
serious.
I would never do that. I thought it was a practical joke when they called me. Did I tell you that? When
Maybe it is. You have not gone to the gig yet.
That's true. That's true. And it's not listed on any website anywhere. This could be a practical joke.
It's not listed on the website.
No.
Oh, because it's in-house.
Right.
Right.
So it's not for
Right.
the public.
Right.
But you know, I think if I work out and do enough shows, it's just fun.
Yeah.
I just go on and it's fun, and I know what to say, and it's
it's a
the only
big
way to
gig.
explain to do that.
Do you know how many people you'll be performing for?
I have no idea.
Why didn't you find out?
Okay, so here's the deal. Kirchhoff Hall was where the show was initially. And then-
Kirchhoff?
Kirchhoff, like jerk off. Kirchhoff Hall.
Right.
And it seats like 200. Intimate, nice, intimate place. So she texted me the other day. She said, "No, it's going to be in Royce Hall now."
Big.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know how many people will come. I don't know. But she sent me this email. She goes, "You're going to be great. We're so excited to have you. And the place is going to be really supportive."
Do you know how you got the gig?
I have no idea. And I didn't ask. And I didn't want to ask. Because
Right.
you don't, right? You don't say, "Why are you inviting me?"
Right. Are you sure you have the right person?
Right. I have
Now, why are you nervous, though?
because I don't get on stage enough. You know, I don't do enough stand-up. I don't get on stage enough. I don't get invited to do stand-up enough around town. I'm not a regular in any of the clubs. Like, I'm not in the cliques. So I don't get to, where I get to work out, 10 minutes would be a lot of time in town. So
And
like
you're going to
when
do
I-
an hour?
It's a short set, thank God. It's half hour.
Oh, it's a half hour.
So it'll be fun and easy.
well,
but
sometimes 5
I've
minutes can
never
be an
played
hour and a half.
I could be. I never played university before, so what if I get on and there's a lot of cultural references from that I'm talking about that they're not gonna know because they grew up
But
on
let
YouTube.
me, because what you're doing right now.
I'm psyching myself out.
Yes, you are, and I've done it, and I do it every new gig I play, like every new city. I'm like, God, what the fuck are these people like? But you know what? Even though I've just been railing about the fact that capitalism completely, ignores our humanity, everybody is just a person at Royce Hall, that day, except with the possible exception of this guy, Ned Ryerson.
Why Ned?
No, I'm just kidding, but everybody's a person, and so you just do your thing. You talk about humanity. You go from talking about yourself and your relationship foibles, right, and then maybe go into politics a little bit. I think, and you were talking about opening about the college scandal.
Oh,
which is
that's
perfect.
yeah. I got some good stuff about that.
Well, I guess they'll be the judge of that.
I guess so. Well, also, I'm like you. I'll watch because there's going to be a bunch of comedy before me. There's going to be some opening acts, so I'll watch them.
Oh, there
and kind
is.
of gauge and figure out.
Do you know who's opening?
I don't know the comics, but
Do you know the names?
Curtis something or other. Curtis Cook, I think the guy's name is. Do you know him?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's opening. He's like from Portland, a Portland guy.
Okay.
And then they're gonna have an MC or something, but
Dude, it'll be interesting, and you'll go with the flow. Like you said, you'll watch the opening acts, and man, I was thinking about this. I was working out today, not to brag. I mean, you could see it that I'm losing weight. If you follow me, I'm losing weight. You could see it in my face. And,
can you share with them some of your workout?
well, I work out with the Navy SEAL. Now, of course, he's he's an elephant seal, a Navy elephant seal.
What does that mean?
It means that he's big. He let himself go. A Navy elephant seal is a guy who let himself go, and he works. He's my trainer, and we just work out like animals.
Can you tell them your warm up?
Well, my warm-up is to just all kinds of weights are strapped to me, and I crawl around and I cry. And I just start crying until I'm brought to tears. And he makes me identify different objects, like they do to dogs, smart dogs like Australian Shepherds. He makes me, and I don't know what that has to do with working out, but he makes me identify different objects, that he came across while in combat. He was a Navy SEAL, and as you know, most of their work is done in the water. Most of the
So there's a lot of rusty shit he's asking you to identify, so it's not easy to...
Why is there a lot of rusty shit?
It was underwater.
Oh, yeah. No. It's different shells I have to identify. Like I have to say, oh, that's a tortoise shell. Anyway, it's complicated and it's not easy, but I'm losing weight and
You feel great, right?
I feel really good, except when I've had the I go back and forth between, and this may be part of my megalomania or part of my mental illness, and is that I feel really great. And then I
feel like shit.
Well, then I can so easily go down a rabbit hole, and the idea is not to feel really,
too high.
Well, you don't want to get, you don't want to be like that all the, you kind of want that even keel stuff. And today I was thinking about, this is what I originally was thinking about, because it relates to your being nervous about Royce Hall. When I was in the gym today, I was thinking, we have to welcome into our lives struggle. We have to welcome into our lives fear. We have to welcome into our lives pain. And what I mean by that is is like know that, we're not going to be annihilated. You know what I mean? Like, and this is a guy who suffers. I suffer from panic attacks, and that's not to brag. All right, I'm in show business, and you know my opinion of you if you're not in show business. But we have to welcome in adversity, and because once you, and this was something I read in a book. This guy asked another guy, this kid in his class was a running back on the football team, and he was the best running back in the league. Let's say the college league or whatever the fuck they call it. The college.
The NCAA.
The NCAA or whatever. And he asked this guy, because this guy was a football player too, but he wasn't very good. And he asked this guy, what's your secret? What? How come you're such a great running back? And he said, because I'm not afraid to be hit.
Walter Payton.
Was Payton like that too?
Yeah. He hit the guy before the guy hit him.
But this guy said,
and
I'm not afraid to be fucking hit. And we in life, we can't, we can be afraid because but we have to walk through it. Like we can't push it away all the time. You know what I mean?
I may be playing up the nervousness of this. I'm kind of looking forward to it more than I'm letting on.
It's a big gig.
Yeah, and it's not really that much time. If it was an hour, I'd be more nervous. It's half hour's fun. But about 7 years ago, I booked my first Performing Arts Center tour thing. And I had no gigs leading up to it. And it was an out-of-town gig. I had to go before and promote it. And all I had to warm up to that gig with were open mics in the local area. I had to go do open mics. It was bloodbath after bloodbath. No one laughed at any open mic I did. And and after 3 or 4 of them, I started muttering and mumbling to myself and talking to myself. And like, maybe maybe I chose the wrong profession. Maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah, I know.
I got to do 70 minutes too. And I'd never done, an hour 70, an hour,
when
but
was
70. This was 2013, 2014.
Okay.
And
great year for the Beaujolais, but go ahead.
And thank you, Eddie.
It has nothing to do with you. Beaujolais that was a great year for Beaujolais.
So I did these open mics, and they were so fucking horrible. And the local people hated me. They were like, "Who's this guy? Why is he here?"
Oh, you did open mics?
I was doing these open mics
on the road.
The comics hated me. The comics at the open mics hated me. Because I was going on doing violent shit because I'm getting ready to work. I'm working out. And I'm going on, and I thought, this is going to be really bad. And the day of the show came, and I had a great show. I had a great turnout. I had a great show. And I did 70 minutes, which I can't even believe. But I realized that those shows were making me better, even though they were terrible. Something good. I was tuning something. even
Yes.
though I couldn't feel it because I was.
And you were also getting through absolute abject failure in your head, because I know those open mic. Matter of fact, I did a show this week. You know, I'm kind of an accomplished comic, right? But the part of the being a comedian is dealing with
People hating you.
well, not having a good set.
When did you not have a good set?
I was just kind of meandering on Monday. I had a set Monday at a place downtown, and it was just a long bar, you know. It was a long bar, and the guys who hosted were really nice, but it wasn't that many people there, and a long bar, and I just kind of was like kind of in it, like, you know, every gig is different, and I was kind of in and out of it. I was a little spacey. I didn't take it that serious, you know. And these guys were super nice, and they were introducing me as the great.
Oh, so they built you up.
They built me up so much about it. He's the greatest, and what a legend. We can't believe we have him. So I did my gig, and then this female comic came up afterwards, and she was like, after me, and she was like, boy, if that's a legend.
Oh,
And-
wow.
And you know what was funny?
She got a big laugh saying that, didn't
No, she didn't. And I was right there, and I almost said something because I felt like yelling out, "I'm right here," you know. But I didn't, and I realized. But why I brought that up is, you said the other comedians hated you, and I just realized, you know, so this was kind of like, you know, kind of a low rent show a little bit, and the comics who were on it, I think, are, you know, quote unquote struggling for time, and they turn on like this woman turned on me. You know what I mean? And my first reaction was to like go after her.
Sure.
From there, from heckling or whatever. But I realized that.
Yeah, that's like digging yourself up.
Well, I realized too, you know, it's about me having some fucking confidence and faith, you know, but it is.
It's a shitty feeling to have a bad set, no matter
Yeah.
where it is, and you don't feel better till you have the good set.
Yeah.
You know, Brazil and I did that show in Glendale. Did he tell you about that?
When, recently?
No, like 8 months ago or something. We did this show. We were just running around, and Glendale it was after the podcast. We went out to, you know, and it was a fucking nightmare. It was a very, you know, I shouldn't put it down for being millennial because that doesn't mean anything, but it was very politically correct, kind of polite, very polite, you know, which I don't know how this vogue happened in comedy, but mostly just comics who were bad and new. And then there's me and Mark Brazil, you know, and we're like, you know, the girl went on and she told a couple jokes, and Brazil is responding to her jokes in my ear, sitting off stage.
Right.
He's giving me responses that he would want to say to her. So who's the next comic? Me. So I went up and I said Mark Brazil's responses, which made everybody laugh. Except the girl. She started screaming at me. She started, fuck you, shut the fuck up, fuck you. So
The comic?
yeah, the comic. But they were polite things. They weren't, you know, they weren't vicious in any
Right.
way. She told a joke about how she was a broke girl, and she said, I bought a $12 sandwich every day for a month, and now I don't have any money for toothpaste. And Brazil's in my ear going, a frugal girl would have packed a lunch. So I went on and said that. I said that, you know. Anyway, I thought I was being creative, taking my buddies. Anyway, people laughed, but she did not think that was funny. Anyway, attacked me. Vicious.
What'd you do?
I attacked her. I told her I made fun of her set, the whole set. I just made fun of her set. It wasn't good, dude. It wasn't good. And then Brazil.
That is not good.
The best thing is Brazil.
I didn't go low like that.
You didn't?
No, because, you know, I realized, you know, they're just struggling. You know, people are struggling at that level, and, you know, I mean, we have some ads to read, but I was like, you know, going through that little crisis of confidence, like, oh, how come I couldn't like find my footing? And, you know, I mean, it's interesting when it is good to fail, because you realize, okay, I've got to prepare more. You know, there's a little checklist, like I got to prepare more. I have to be more rested. I have to be ready for this. If you don't want to feel bad after a set, there's a little checklist you can do that can help you not feel bad. And it's basically being prepared mentally and physically for the set, because almost all of my sets, I'm just like, oh, it's here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, oh, shit, I forgot I got this show tonight.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's bullshit in a way, you know?
Yeah, but
I mean, I don't know. What
when
were
it
you gonna
goes
say?
well, when it goes good, it's not bullshit. When it goes good, it's, but wow, that was great. You know, when it goes bad, it was like, oh fuck, I should have. When you have a bad set, or you have a set that didn't go as well as you would have liked, do you ever have this happen after the set? You're on your way home, or the next day, and you're like, you know, if I would have made this turn here, if I would have said that, I could have, not that the set would have gone well, but it could have been a more productive time on stage. Because here's a thought, or here's something I wanted to work out, and I could have made that right turn right there. And
well, that's making, you see, that is, you know, being productive with the bad set then.
Right.
You know, and, you know, I tape every set that I do on, you know, audio on the iPhone, and then so I'll listen to it, and a lot of times when I listen to my sets, they're not as bad as I thought. If I give it time, like you're not supposed, don't listen to it right away, but give it at least a week to, like, you know, when you're away from it emotionally, and then you realize, oh, okay, that wasn't that as bad as I thought. Wow. It's like this. I think what a lot of comedians have is this. It's like it's this double-edged sword. You know, it's this double-edged sword of like, I want to be loved and adored and the center of attention.
But
you fill it in.
You have shit you need to say. You have shit you desperately need to say that you have to have the courage to. If you don't do it, I don't know how it is for you. For me, it is. I can have a bad set and it's productive if I worked out something. If I went into something on stage I was afraid of, or you know what I mean?
Well, I'm in it for the adoration. I'm not kidding.
I know.
That's what drives me. And, you know,
no,
I mean.
Not me.
No?
No.
What do you
I am
for?
desperately need to say shit.
What do you need to say?
Whatever I have to say.
Why?
Because I need to say it. Otherwise, I'm going to be a really bad member of society if I don't get to say that shit.
Are you saying you need to get out stuff so you don't hold it in your head and it drives you nuts? Or do you need to, like,
have people understand some shit that I don't think that I'm afraid to have the courage and bravery to bring up something that scares me, you know, or that is really funny to me that I think my people might not understand, or to be understood, actually, not to be understood by strangers. That's why I...
Like, what do you want to say to these college kids at Royce Hall on Friday?
What do I really want to say?
Well, what do you want to say?
I want to say...
Because that's what you're in it
I'm
for.
fucking... I should have been entertaining you. I should have been entertaining colleges like 10 years ago. And now I don't know if you'll fucking understand a word that I know for a fact that 3 or 4 of my funniest things, they won't understand. You know, Jewish Wizard of Oz, the comedy. I have a bit called the comedy Autopsy. And no, they're not going to fucking understand. I'm talking about this comedy in the 80s.
Are you going to talk about that?
No. Why? Because, I mean, if I'm feeling really good and they're with me, I will. Like, if I'm, like, they love me, maybe I will.
Well, now you're saying what I'm saying. If they love you.
Right.
You know, that's what I'm in it for. I'm in it to feel that high. I'm an addict.
You're a purist.
Look, we have ads. They're written by Matt Rasamoto, or Mato. Moto or Mato. Matt Rasamoto is a producer, and he writes these ads, and we have a new sponsor. And we still haven't gotten paid for any of these ads, but we're hoping to. All right, so here's our first one. It's from Game of Thrones. If you are like me, you are a huge Game of Thrones geek. I tell you, I can't get enough. Sure, I talk a big game on this podcast about how I don't like GOT, but my true fans know I'm emotionally crippled between episodes. And if you were like me, waiting between seasons was a white walking nightmare. I don't think any of us want the softcore pageantry to end, and we're in luck. AT&T is hard at work converting all of its storefronts into Game of Thrones themed virtual reality arcades. Imagine yourself as the Night King storming across Westeros with your army of undead. You arrive at King's Landing, and after a glorious victory, you totally bone Cersei on the back of your ice dragon. All the while, your wife and kids outside of your virtual reality hedonistic pleasure orgy watch daddy find a very real climax while air humping an imaginary bitch princess. You cannot beat the look of pride on the faces of children who know that for $250 a month family plan is totally worth seeing a grown man publicly orgasm through the front of his pants during a virtual 5-way with the remaining Stark children. Some life lessons you cannot put a price tag on. With AT&T, you can become part of the adventure. When the show ends, you can become part of the Game of Thrones saga. Your kids will never forget. So AT&T...
Dude, that was so... Just, you didn't know any of those references you were reading, and you sold that shit?
Yeah.
Like you were the fucking Game of Thrones guy.
AT&T is doing some great stuff in conjunction with Game of Thrones. Now, I hope AT&T pays us. You know, they're a big company, and they have dehumanized everyone. AT&T is a big one. You want to read another ad?
Yeah,
Here's
let's
another
do it,
ad.
man.
This one, this ad, and we have a couple of phone calls. This is Rick's Discount Hollywood Badges, and written by Matt Rasamoto, and it's... here we go.
All right. If you live in Los Angeles, you know how annoying it can be when they're doing a location shoot in your neighborhood. With all the road closings, parking troubles, porta potties, and bright lights hanging from cranes in front of your house all hours of the night, who needs it? At Rick's Discount Hollywood Badges, you send them your address and the dates, and they will send you crew badges that match the shoot. You can walk right on set and give the director a piece of your mind. You can fill the porta potties with live bats or replace the crafts table with your naked self. Let those Hollywood liberal elites eat their Twinkies and mini muffins straight off your giggling epidermis. With the right pass from Rick's Discount Hollywood Badges, you can walk straight into any celebrity's trailer and taste all their underwear, take a dump on an equipment cart, or jump in front of the cameras and show them what real acting looks like. According to SAG, if they play that footage at your trial, it counts as an on-air speaking role. Rick's Discount Hollywood Badges makes fake badges of the highest quality. That's why it's called Rick's Discount Hollywood Badges, and not Rick's Ethical High Ground of Moral Expectations. That's owned by a different Rick. Pretty good one, Matt.
Yeah. Now, I hope... so that's basically, very LA-centric.
Yeah.
But actually, they film all over.
Yeah,
they
do.
Meaning the people that Goldman Sachs fund. Movies, they're hedge funds. They're fucking financed by hedge funds.
That's
and
why the movies
shit.
are so terrible.
That's right. That's why you get Adam Sandler shit, as opposed to, a dark film about a postman who has a frozen hammer. That
and he's pitching. He's pitching.
No, you know what I mean. Instead of seeing like real people's lives or interesting
Instead of Taxi
dark
Driver,
comedies.
instead of Network.
Taxi Driver, no, Network. Because Network to me is up here and Taxi Driver is kind of in the middle. You love Taxi Driver?
It's great.
Why?
It's great.
Why?
Come on.
Why?
'Cause
Why?
it's great.
Why?
Like a kid. Like a 60-year-old kid. Why?
All right, we have a phone call or two we want to get to. By the way, I'm going to be I was supposed to plug my stuff at the top, but we got into, first it was sexual slavery, and that being, a byproduct of greed and the dehumanization of people and the collapse of communities and the collapse of, a shared humanity. Capitalism destroys what is sacred and communal.
By the way, before we have that call, speaking of that, I got in a lift today. I was telling you, I got in this lift.
Right.
And the girl had on, and this is just my little bit being out of touch because I just don't listen to pop music, but she had on pop R&B, or I don't know exactly how you would categorize this music, but it was literally, the song was, the guy was singing over and over, birthday sex, birthday sex, birthday sex, birthday sex. And I did that. I went, is he? And the girl, this was not meant to be funny. This is a serious song, birthday sex. And it went on, and it had no melody. It was just a guy
birthday
singing.
sex is very serious.
It's very serious, but
very serious.
it was not meant to be. It was funny. It was very, very funny. And then the song after that was, lick me, a woman singing, lick me, lick me, lick it. Lick me, lick me. And so you wonder.
This is your Lyft driver.
This is my
this?
Lyft driver, and she didn't crack a smile. I was laughing. I had to suppress my laughter.
Was she friendly to you?
She was okay. You know, she was actually.
You think she was trying to tell you something?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not. No.
I mean, you never know.
You never.
Because my Lyft drivers are always telling me stuff through their playlists.
You know, this is how depressing this is. I didn't want to go there with her and then get a bad Lyft review, and then never
because
I need the transportation.
All right.
You know.
I want to read a quote here. So I'm going to be in Austin. Right. Eddie's schedule now. Steve's at Royce Hall, which you can't come to. You can't promote it.
Unless
you know what I realized
UCLA,
that? Unless you're a UCLA student or a faculty member.
Or alumni.
But another thing you might want to mention about UCLA, and I remember reading this, it was an expose, and I think it was the LA Times, but it could have been the New York Times, whatever. Probably the LA Times. But they were the fucking UCLA medical department. They were selling body parts on the black market.
Really? When was this?
Google it, but cadavers. There's like a market for cadavers and organs, yeah, all this shit, and it was on the black market, and it was going on in UCLA. And also, you know what the scumbags do? I believe at UCLA is they test on animals, the pieces of shit. I believe so. Anyway, I want to read you something from Eugene Debs about capitalism. Ready? Eugene Debs, who was a socialist, he decried the unholy alliance between capitalism and war, the use of the working class by the capitalists as cannon fodder in World War I, and the Wilson administration's persecution of anti-war activists, unionists, anarchists, socialists, and communists. So he was getting thrown in jail. So he said this in court. Your Honor, years ago I recognized my kinship with all living beings, and I made up my mind that I was not one bit better than the meanest on earth. I said then, and I say now, that while there is a lower class, I am in it. And while there is a criminal element, I am of it. And while there is a soul in prison, I am not free. I listen to all, you would never hear this like on a Verizon commercial with Thomas Middleditch. Can you imagine that? Like Middleditch. Middleditch, like doing a Debs speech before he tells you to, Verizon's got a great package. So, and this continues this speech. I listened to all that was said in this court in support and justification of this prosecution, but my mind remains unchanged. I look upon the espionage law as a despotic enactment in flagrant conflict with democratic principles and with the spirit of free institutions. Your Honor, I have stated in this court that I am opposed to the social system in which we live, that I believe in a fundamental change, but if possible, by peaceable and orderly means. I am thinking this morning of the men in the mills and the factories, of the men in the mines and on the railroads. I am thinking of the women who for a paltry wage are compelled to work out their barren lives, of the little children who in this system are robbed of their childhood and in their tender years are seized in the remorseless grasp of maman and forced into the industrial dungeons, there to feed the monster machines, while they themselves are being starved and stunted, body and soul. I see them dwarfed and diseased, and their little lives broken and blasted, because in this high noon of Christian civilization, money is still so much more important than the flesh and blood of childhood. This was written, by the way, in fucking 1918.
Man, they could give a speech back then.
That's right. And he goes, it goes, sorry, everybody. In very truth, gold is God today and rules with pitiless sway in the affairs of men. That's why we talk about spirituality on this show, too, is that, with all the, gold is God, money is God.
We're saying the same things 100 years later, that he was saying
it's worse now.
Well, I think
it's got to be, no?
Technology and has made it worse, but I think environmentally. But Chomsky said societies and peoples have fought their way. This is what gives me some hope. He said societies and peoples have fought their way out of worse situations and circumstances than we're in now. So it's not impossible for us to dig out of this, And
we need to find courage, and I speak for myself too. We need to find courage.
But you do have courage. Well, you went on Dana's podcast, and he asked you point blank. He said, what do you
talk
make?
About that pod? You were there for the live taping. Dana Gouldauer.
Very funny, but that's kind of irrelevant. It was good. It was funny.
Right.
Everybody was funny, but at the end, Eddie comes on, and Dana says, because he wasn't political at all. The podcast was not political. It was like a Tonight Show. And then he said to Eddie, "What can you tell us? You're a pretty political guy. Can you tell us what you make of this Russian thing?" And Eddie,
the Mueller report.
By the way, yeah. And by the way, there's a lot of people sitting in the crowd who totally bought into that thing. Yeah. They were like gamblers resting their hopes on the Mueller report, And Eddie just said, I think you were a sort of an elder voice to a lot of people in there. Because you said, no, it's not Julian Assange. It's not, it was the Democratic Party is failed. They failed to beat a fascist. And, that takes courage. I know some people who are die-in-the-wool, they claim to be die-in-the-wool left-wing activists, and they're afraid to take that stance.
Well, they're idiots. In this country, this is still Eugene Debs. In this country, the most favored beneath the bending skies, we have vast areas of the richest and most fertile soil, material resources in inexhaustible abundance. That's not true anymore. The most marvelous productive machinery on earth, and millions of eager workers ready to apply their labor to that machinery to produce in abundance for every man, woman, and child. And if there are still vast numbers of our people who are the victims of poverty and whose lives are an unceasing struggle all the way from youth to old age, until at last death comes to their rescue and lulls these hapless victims to dreamless sleep. Now he's speaking my language. It is not the fault of the Almighty. It cannot be charged to nature, but it is due entirely to the outgrown social system in which we live that ought to be abolished. This system should be abolished, not only in the interest of the toiling masses, but in the higher interest of all humanity. I believe, Your Honor, in common with all socialists, that this nation ought to own and control its own industries. We should own and control our own industries. I believe, as all socialists do, that all things that are jointly needed and used ought to be jointly owned. that industry, the basis of our social life, instead of being the private property of a few and operated for their enrichment, ought to be the common property of all, democratically administered in the interest of all. I am opposing a social order in which it is possible for one man who does absolutely nothing that is useful to amass a fortune of hundreds of millions of dollars, while millions of men and women who work all the days of their lives secure barely enough for a wretched existence. And it was interesting because today, Abigail Disney, I don't know if you heard about this, but
No.
an heiress to the Disney fortune, Abigail Disney, said Robert Iger, what he earns as a CEO is fucking insane. She didn't say fucking, she said it's insane what Robert Iger earns. And it turns out he earns more than 1,500 times what the average worker earns. And this is what Debs is talking about, that the concentration of wealth is in the hands of,
Right.
and it's gotten worse and worse,
Oh, and it's on steroids now.
It's on steroids. So I'll just finish it. This is a famous speech. And we need someone who could speak like him, We need someone who can speak like him.
We don't have anybody who speaks like that. That's
Well, you know why? Because integrity, Hedges speaks like him.
a little bit. Yeah.
A lot of it.
Yeah.
This order of things cannot always endure. I have registered my protest against it. I recognize the feebleness of my effort, but fortunately I am not alone. There are multiplied thousands of others who, like myself, have come to realize that before we may truly enjoy the blessings of civilized life, we must reorganize society upon a mutual and cooperative basis. And to this end, we have organized a great economic and political movement that spreads over the face of all the earth. Your Honor, I ask no mercy.
Exhibit A.
And I plead for no immunity. I realize that finally the right must prevail. I never so clearly comprehended as now the great struggle between the powers of greed and exploitation on the one hand, and upon the other the rising hosts of industrial freedom and social justice. And now we have a call to go to.
And an ad.
By the way, I'm going to be at the Moon Tower Comedy Festival starting tomorrow night. That's in Austin. If you're in Texas, if you're in the Austin area, or if you like to drive from Lubbock, come on down to, I'm going to be in Austin the 25th, 26th, 27th. I'm going to be doing stand-up on the Andy Kindler show, this particular show that Andy Kindler hosts. I'm going to be performing with a lot of great comics over 3 days. And I'm going to do pep talks without Lolly. I'm going to have Joe DeRosa, and I think JT Haberstadt's going to be with me too. And let's go to a call. We have just 2 this week. Let's listen to the first one, and here it comes. Here we go.
Yes. Hello, Mr. Eddie, and also Mr. Steve. I want to get your opinion on the character Apu Nahasapim Petalan on the show, The Simpsons. And they'll take my answer off the air.
So we have this is obviously a gentleman of Indian descent, and he would like our opinion on the character Apu, and he'll take his message off the air. What do you say about Apu?
Keep doing what you're doing, man. I'm with you, man.
You with who?
Apu.
Apu?
Yeah.
Do you know what he's talking about?
Yeah, he's talking about them wanting to ban in The Simpsons because it's a caricature of an Indian.
Right. I think it's good. I think it's funny, and it's interesting. I'm going to be on a panel with Ron Bennington. Ron Bennington, who has a Sirius, really cool dude, and he's got a Sirius XM station channel, and it's going to be called "It's Offensive," and it's about the PC culture and what you should say, what you can and cannot say. And I think I land somewhere like I think you have to be kind of. I think you have to be, sensitive somewhat. You can't be an idiot. Like, I don't like comics who talk about rape, unless it's done in a really funny way and it has them as the brunt of it. But You know what I mean? Like, I think you have to. But I believe in the right of the comic to say whatever he wants. But I believe that you're gonna get.
But they don't. The PC, the censorship liberals don't want to have any. By the way, the reason we don't have really badass left-wing commentary like we had in the days of Carlin is because they've killed off. You know, they don't want you to think you should say things. I mean, how do you fucking learn to say something, right? Unless you have that violent experiment of saying it. It's a totally failed experiment, PC. It's a totally backward failed experiment, and it's the left taking on the worst qualities of the right. To me, the right, there was always the church people who said, "Don't say this, don't say that." Now it's these fucking boutique liberal, censorship people. I'd rather live in a world where Mel Gibson can be I know Mel Gibson's an anti-Semite, than in a world where he can't say, I like to know what people are thinking.
Okay. Well, that's a big topic. Here's a really good call. Ready?
Hey, Steve, Eddie. Just thinking about you guys. I was relaxing after a long day. I having a vodka tonic, kind of centering myself, listening to Beatles' The White Album. And I'm thinking about, how many times the Beatles must have had to play their songs and it just became tedious. It just became almost like an Excel sheet, to them, and just how much, tedium we all have to deal with. And even in, creative things, whether you're writing something, painting, performing music, there's monotony. You can't escape that, so you just kind of have to embrace that, you go to a concert, honestly, this happened a few times, you see the lead singer, they're constantly just fiddling with the microphone, non-stop, and you can see the frustration in their eyes, and it's just, you can't escape, these tiny little deaths during the day, so you just kind of have to embrace them. So I guess that's the overall question for you guys to kind of answer, how do you deal with, the monotony of life? Even though you guys are doing creative things, you must experience that on a day-to-day basis trying to do, your guys' art. So let me know what you think about that. Bye.
Well, that's interesting. Did you get a name? I didn't get a name, but thank you for the call. It's funny. He's saying that he's centering himself with, I think, a vodka and tonic and the Beatles' White Album, which the White Album, that has a lot of intense songs on it, happiness is a warm gun. And then, back in the USSR, but he's centering himself. And so what do you think about what he's talking about, the struggle with tedium, monotony, boredom?
I don't have tedium, dude. I chose a life of, it's either horror or exhaustion. There's no tedium here, dude.
Horror or exhaustion?
Terror and anxiety or complete exhaustion. And it just goes back and forth because I didn't want a life of tedium. So this is the life I chose. But I would love for my comedy to be so tedious that I just can't bear to make all this money to tell these jokes again.
Well, it was very eloquent what he was saying. 1,000 little deaths, when you're dealing with boredom and tedium. The gentleman sounded very much like an Albert Camus novel.
Yeah.
The Stranger, if you've ever read The Stranger. By the way, you should read The Stranger, folks, by Albert Camus. It's an existential tour de force. But yeah, it
was poetic.
There is tedium. Yeah, I have tedium in my life, and it isn't easy to deal with because our instinct, and the Buddhists talk about this all the time, our instinct is to run from it. Tedium has its basis in non-acceptance. Tedium has its basis in not accepting where you're at. Tedium has its basis in always wanting more, than what you have. Because when you want more, you're bored with what you're bored or you're dissatisfied. Another word for tedium is dissatisfaction.
Monotony. He said
monotony is dissatisfaction. Because when I feel tedium, one of my first things, since I don't smoke weed anymore or drink, is to eat something.
I do that too, big time. But he...
And that's an escape from tedium. It's an escape from ourselves. We're uncomfortable with ourselves. If we could just accept, the present moment, like I'm okay with it. And that gets back to my point again of being okay with pain. Again, the running back who was the best running back because he wasn't afraid to get hit. If we can stay more or less in a place where we're not afraid of all, of annihilation, because I think we run from ourselves because we're so scared of just being what we are, who we are, when we, in the present moment. We always have to be, we're always projecting ourselves into the future. We're always like trying to make things better in our head. If I only was a comic who had this, and it, whatever people, if I only had this, if I only had that, instead of like really being, in gratitude.
Right, but accepting tedium and being in gratitude are two different, accepting tedium and dying a 1,000 little deaths. That's part of the human condition, but it's not a good, I think it is something you want to fight to not have. You don't want to be living a tedious life.
I think you're missing the point about what I'm saying, which is it's not so much, you don't want to live a tedious life, but there are just complete moments of tedium in our lives, no matter what we do and who we are. And he gave the example of the Beatles or lead singers in concerts, like fiddling with the microphone.
They're still bored. They still find boredom even in their
pockets of, and I think it's terror. I think tedium is terrifying to people. Loneliness is terrifying to people, all that stuff. Now, a life of tedium,
I mean a life of monotony. That's kind of how I interpret it. When he talks about tedium, I think about my early 20s and having the jobs I had, like factotum, doing these jobs that are just so stupid and a waste of a person's essence. That's what I think when I think of tedium. That's why I said that. And I ran from that with comedy. And now I'm living in a seesaw of horror and terror and exhaustion, as opposed to...
That doesn't sound good to me either.
It's not good either.
I don't know if you're substituting tedium for horror, terror, and exhaustion. That'd be a funny, like, self-help guy who's like, "Are you sick and tired of tedium and boredom?
Try terror and exhaustion." God.
Well, then horror, terror, and exhaustion are for you. With my new program, you can be horrified, terrified, and completely exhausted within 3 weeks. All right, so here's our third ad, and then we're going to say good night, good day, good morning, good twilight, whatever you... This is ad space for rent. This ad space is for rent. That's right, for rent. Sure, we have sponsors clawing each other's eyes out for a chance to get the coveted third ad block on the Pep Talks podcast show. But you know what? We said fuck the corporate goons. We are offering it up to you regular goons. Judging by our numbers, some of you have jobs, and those jobs need advertising. Take, for example, frequent listener and lifelong pep head Leon Slobberdick, who wrote in asking us to write an ad for his company, Slobberdick Insurance of Wilming Bloom, Iowa. And here it is. Like many Americans, you've been in a fender bender or injured in an accident that wasn't your fault. Wouldn't it be good to know that there is someone on your side, no matter how violently you smashed your convertible into that preschool on Mulholland, because that post-op prostitute gave roadhead so forcefully that it was almost impossible to drive while doing lines off her back. Slobberdick Insurance has you covered. Imagine your company getting an ad placement on a show as well-received, beloved, and red-blooded American as Pep Talks podcast. Why be a nobody when you can be a Slobberdick? Buy a Pep Talks ad block today. And that was written by Matt Rasamoto. So if you have any problems with that, that's Matt Rasamoto. I probably wouldn't have wrote that. Hey, you like Pep Talks, right? Would you maybe want to write a review on iTunes or like us on SoundCloud? Please write a review on iTunes, or like us on SoundCloud. We are on Spotify and YouTube. You literally have endless options to show us your love. Some of you superfans are looking to stand out as superior members of society and really show us your obscene level of dedication. Well, now you can. PepTalks.com has a donate button. We have a donate button now. So PepTalksPodcast.com has a donate button. Now, this is important to me and Steve. I just want to take a moment here. You heard and you hear about Steve's life. It's one of horror, terror, and exhaustion. Well, this donut button, this donate or donut button can help. Now, this donate button that uses the magic of technology to digitally take your hard-earned money from the mouths of your children and places it safely into Eddie's wallet where it belongs. Oh, you're not mentioned. I guess this is my money. This is not for the faint of heart, but if you are a real Pep Talks fan, you wouldn't be so vain as to think that the money you worked for was yours for the keeping. Now, I'm not here to guilt you, so I'll let a Bible verse do that for me. Like Matthew 6:21, quote, "For where your money is, your heart is there also." And we just read about Mammon, Eugene Debs talking about God as money. So if you truly ever loved Pep Talks podcast, you would take a little from your kids' college fund and put it where it will go to the most use. Eddie's Walking Around Money Fund. Think about it. All right, folks, thank you for tuning in to Pep Talks Podcast. Leave a message for us for the show. You heard a couple of those messages today. Our number to leave a message for the show is 424-262-0904. That number is 424-262-0904. You could email us at fanmail@peptalkspodcast.com. You could visit peptalkspodcast.com and hit that donate button. Our engineers are Emma Erdbrink, and today we're in the studio with Aaron Brungardt. And our producers, Matt Rasamoto, and we will see you next time.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.